The city survived a volcano, not metaphorically. Pompeii went under 6 meters of volcanic ash in 79 AD. Thousands of people died in hours, but the ash sealed everything. Streets, shops, food still on tables, graffiti still readable on walls. Even the hollow shapes of the people who died inside it. 2,000 years of survival. The fall of Rome, plagues, looters, earthquakes, all of it. Then, in 1943, Allied bombers showed up. They weren't targeting Roman ruins. They were targeting military infrastructure. But the bombs didn't care. They landed inside Pompeii. They hit structures that had stood since the 1st century, and it happened more than once. What a volcano preserved for 2,000 years, a world war tried to erase in an afternoon. The question is how, and whether anyone tried to stop it. Here's what you probably already know, the fast version, because the details matter for what comes next. Vesuvius erupted. Ash and pumice came first, then a pyroclastic surge, superheated gas and debris moving at hurricane speed. Thousands died, and the burial that killed them accidentally preserved everything around them. No oxygen, no moisture. Bread stayed in ovens, frescoes kept their color, wine jars stayed stacked in storage. When excavators in the 1860s poured plaster into the hollow voids left by decomposed bodies, what came out was haunting. A man with his arm over his face, a woman still holding a child, clothing, fingers, expressions. Formal excavations started in 1748. By 1943, nearly 2 centuries of digging had uncovered temples, bakeries, brothels, and amphitheater. Scholars from every country had studied it. It was still actively being excavated. Irreplaceable? Isn't strong enough, but it's the right word. And that was exactly what it was when Allied forces landed in Sicily in July 1943 and started pushing north. The Allied campaign in Italy had one goal: push German forces north. To do that, you cut their supply lines, roads, railways, ports, depots. Naples was the most important port in southern Italy. Pompeii sits about 23 kilometers southeast of Naples, right along the transportation corridors the Allies were specifically targeting. In 1943, bombs landed inside the archaeological site. Multiple raids, documented damage. The Scola Armaturarum, a structure tied to gladiatorial training covered in notable decorative work, was hit. Structures that had survived 19 centuries didn't survive the war. Now here's where it gets complicated. Nobody was aiming at Pompeii. There is no evidence anyone deliberately targeted Roman ruins. The targets were military. Pompeii was collateral, close enough to the infrastructure that bombs drifted in. But here's what makes it worse. A system existed specifically to prevent this. The Monuments, Fine Arts, and Archives program, the Monuments Men, was created to identify significant cultural sites and get that information to Allied commanders before bombs fell. Lists were circulated. Eisenhower himself issued a directive: avoid cultural monuments wherever military necessity allows. Pompeii was on the list. It was hit anyway. What does that tell you? A few things. First, that bombing from altitude in 1943 was not precise. You could aim at a rail yard and hit a ruin half a kilometer away. Second, that when military necessity and cultural preservation came into direct conflict, cultural preservation lost. Not out of malice, out of math. The people making these calls were in the middle of a war. The choice wasn't Pompeii or nothing. It was Pompeii or the supply line keeping German troops in the field. That context doesn't make the damage less real. It just makes the whole situation more honest. After the war, assessors went through the damage. Some of it was gone permanently, structures destroyed, decorated surfaces lost forever. That's a real loss. It doesn't deserve a clean ending wrapped around it. But here's what the assessment also found. Pompeii was still there. The streets were still there, the forum, the amphitheater, the bakeries with their ovens, the graffiti on the walls, the plaster casts. The bombs had reached the surface, the excavated, exposed sections of the city. But Pompeii was never just its surface. The eruption had buried an entire city 6 meters deep. Most of it still was. And ash compacted over 19 centuries isn't just dirt. It's closer to a mineral seal. The bombs hit what was above ground. They couldn't touch what the volcano had locked away. Vesuvius won, not as a metaphor, structurally, literally. The thing that destroyed the city had, in the same act, made it nearly indestructible. Those hollow impressions of people who died in 79 AD are still there. Pompeii is still being excavated today. In 2018, a charcoal inscription helped push the likely eruption date from August to October. Nearly 2,000 years later, the city was still correcting its own history. New frescoes, new skeletal remains, new artifacts, still sealed in untouched sections, waiting. A world war came and went. The ash didn't move. The city that was buried in 79 AD is still being found.